Mark Salamango here again. Okay, now that we have had the fire hose talk last week, let's put some order to what's going on. Like most things I get into, I'm excited to progress. This week I had some thoughts about how I should go about learning. Now remember, I'm in my 40s and just started Jiu Jitsu, so with limited time, I've been thinking about how to hack the learning process so that I can make the most of the time I can train. A few years ago, I was coaching people on how to manage projects using the Agile methodology. I think of Agile as being made up of 3 tiers of concepts that go from more general to more specific. At the highest level, you have values, then principles, and finally practices. When I would start my students off with the values or principles, I would usually get a blank stare. The practices, though, were things they could follow. I coached my girls in lacrosse and it was the same thing. They could do the drills after a while, but principles like forcing opponents to the sidelines, not so much. My guitar students fared the same. They would get a scale and some chords, but it would take a while to get the principles. And this led me to looking for ways to teach in ways where learners could master skills more quickly. A talk Alistair Coburn gave on Agile led me to some nice insight. He talked about something called Shuhari. The irony is that Shuhari is a Japanese martial art concept, and I was using it to teach Agile. As it turns out, though, Shuhari worked well for lacrosse, learning guitar, how to shoot, and the mastery of many other skills. Shuhari is a Japanese concept that roughly translated means first learn, then detach, and finally transcend. In the Shu phase, people look for one technique that works. You follow it exactly with no variation. You're measured by how well you copy. While this is a good place to start, you don't want to get stuck here. In Ha, the goal is realizing the principles and the theory behind the moves and learning new stuff. Collect techniques and notice where the things you learned in Shu break down. In Ri, this is where you begin reinventing your own rules. You're merging things, almost not even paying attention, and you just flow. Moves come naturally. You're fluent, it's reflexive. As Coburn explains, there's a big difference from Shu level and Ri levels. Shu level techniques are widely applicable techniques. You can use them in many situations. Ri level techniques are very specific. So for me, a guy who is at the Shu level in Jiu Jitsu, it doesn't make sense to give me a technique that I will only be able to use in very low probability situations. So if we use learning guitar as an example, the Shu phase may be something like learning the pentatonic scale and a couple chords by mimicking the teacher. It meets the criteria for Shu. Pentatonic scales are widely applicable. As a teacher, I may write it out and demonstrate it over a blues progression. The student would then copy it and practice it. As the student progresses to Ha, they learn that you don't always sound hip playing just pentatonics. They also begin to understand why it works over a blues progression. They may target specific notes, and they will start to learn additional scales and chords. When they get to Ri, they're understanding harmonic structures and know enough scales to navigate fluently. It's like they're Neo in the Matrix. They're using altered scales for color and playing outside notes without even thinking. Okay, so now let's apply this to Jiu Jitsu. So beginners in the Shu stage, we need to follow. We can't focus on a million things. One thing that works wildly, then copy it and learn it. We want explicit instructions when starting out. Give me the high percentage move that will serve me well. This week I had an awesome class with one of our brown belts, David Brown. Now the cool thing about the class was that we drilled the same basic thing for the whole class. The foundation was the same, but there were little nuances that were added to the end of the movement. This was great. The other thing was that David explained things like, you block their head with their knee so they can't escape that way, or you need to keep your weight here so you can keep them from pulling guard. So for me, following specific directions are great, but I also like to have a taste of the reasoning that helps to solidify the technique. One of the first things I learned was the Americana. I tried to use it when rolling with higher level belts, but they either could defend it or they were so sweaty that I would lose my grip. Basically, at my level, the technique was breaking down. I knew one thing, but I learned I couldn't apply it to every situation, so I had to adapt. The trick with learning anything is realizing there's a process. Whether you subscribe to Shuhari or something like the Dreyfus Model, it's as much about the journey as the destination. While I'm looking forward to the Ri or fluent stage where I'm not thinking about technique, I'm enjoying each sore and bruising day of the adventure. I hope this helps and encourages you on whatever you're trying to learn. We'll see you next week.